we are going to talk about basic photo corrections. This is the lesson in which we get to dig into some basic editing of photos and put some of the tools that we are learning to use. In addition, we will get acquainted with some Photoshop terminology. Now, in our lesson, they tell us that we can open these lesson files in Adobe Bridge first. We're not going to do that. Okay, you do not have to use Adobe Bridge. I would just suggest go ahead and open up Photoshop and then do File and open each one of these lesson files in the order that we're going to complete them. The first file that we're going to work with is 02 Color Start, and it is a JPEG. So I'm going to go to File and Open. I'm going to navigate to where my lesson files are at in my Photoshop folder. Here is lesson 2. Okay. There are 3 files that we're going to work with. All of them are JPEGs. Okay. We have this one right here. We have this one right here. And we have this one right here. Okay. So 02 Color Start is the first JPEG that we're going to open. So I'm going to go ahead and select that and click Open. All right, now our book is telling us that we need to resave this file, okay, which is great because we never want to overwrite our lesson start file, okay, in case we ever need to go back and take a look at it or maybe start over. So I'm going to go to File and Save As. Now, I've already worked this, so this time I'm going to save and I'm just going to put this on my desktop, but you will want to navigate to wherever you are saving your homework. So if that's in your Photoshop folder, in your homework folder for lesson 2, you can go ahead and save there now. I'm going to switch to my desktop. I am going to delete the word start, and this will be relabeled as working. Now, these are JPEGs, okay? And as I mentioned, we want to make sure that we change the save as type, okay, or the file extension to a PSD file, okay? This is Photoshop, and unless otherwise stated, okay, we need to make sure that we are saving these as Photoshop files. That way, it's going to retain all of the layers in the Layers panel, and I need those in order to be able to adequately grade your homework. So even though it looks great on screen as a JPEG, I need these as Photoshop files. So you want to make sure you're getting these saved in the right spot, the file name is correct, and even most importantly, the save as type is going to have to be changed to a Photoshop file. So it's right here at the top. You want to make sure this is 02 underscore color underscore working, and it is a Photoshop file. I'm going to go ahead and click Save. And if done correctly, your Open tab right here will look just like this. Evaluating an image for editing. Okay, it can be helpful to evaluate an image to see what kind of editing needs to be done before you begin. The order of editing steps will depend on the project. In a typical workflow, you will first resolve issues affecting the whole image and then address problems that only affect certain areas of the image. Okay, so the following types of basic edits may not apply to every single image that needs correcting. Okay, the ones that we're going to cover in today's lesson is tonal correction, color correction, distraction removal, creative color, sharpness, and composition. Okay, adjusting contrast and color using curves. In Photoshop, most image corrections can be done using options in the adjustments panel. Okay, so I want you to note in this part of the section, there is a really nice screenshot of like the properties panel when we are dealing with an adjustment that is being edited. Okay, and so this has everything broken down for you. Everything is very nicely labeled. So make sure you guys take a few minutes and look over that in this section under adjusting contrast and using adjusting contrast and color using curves. All right, now there is an auto button, okay, that does allow Photoshop to analyze the image and apply a custom curve, and that curve will have 4 points. Okay, this can work very well for many images, but they still may require some more precise manual editing. You can edit the curve by clicking it to add points and then dragging those points to shape that curve. Okay, so let me explain what I'm talking about. All right, so in the layers panel, we have one layer. Okay, it's a background layer. And so what we're going to be doing is making some simple edits to color correct this image. I mean, looking at it, it looks pretty good. Okay, but we can make that look even a little better. All right, so here we have the adjustments panel. Okay, if your adjustments panel is not showing, you can go up here to the top in your menu bar and go to window, and then adjustments is at the top. So everything is in here alphabetically, which is great. Okay, so if you do not see a check mark next to adjustments, go ahead and click that, and that should open on the panels that's docked on the right hand side of your screen. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click curves. Okay, I am under single adjustments right here, and I'm going to go ahead and click on curves. Okay, once I click that, my properties panel, again, if it's not showing, you can go to window and properties. Okay, you want to make sure both of these panels are open and that you can work with them. But once I have clicked to create an adjustment layer for curves, I want you to notice the properties panel. Okay, your properties panel will look very similar to the screenshot that is in the lesson in this section. I also want to point out, if you take a very quick look at the layers panel, okay, it shows that this is an adjustment layer and it is linked. There's a little link icon here. And then if you hover over the curves, this is basically what we're going to be working with. You can see that it is selected. You can see like the line around it. Okay, so this is a curves adjustment layer. All right, what they're going to have us do is they're going to have us click this auto button, okay, which automatically corrects curves, okay? And if I click this, notice A, what is our properties panel looks like, and B, look at how kind of bright and vibrant that made the picture. Okay, remember that the auto button allows Photoshop to analyze the picture, all right, and then create a custom curve based on its recommendation. Okay, so this is what auto gives. Okay, if nothing else, this looks even better. If I toggle the eye icon on and off, you can see it actually looks kind of dim without the curves adjustment layer. And now it's a little bit more vibrant and bright. All right. Now, there are some eyedropper tools here. There's one for black, sample an image to set black point. There's one for sample an image to set gray point, and one for white point. Okay, I'm going to actually click on the white point first, and then we can come over here and sample one of the lightest part of the white clouds. Okay, so we can come over here. Now, the cloud, all of the color in that cloud is not created equal. Some of this looks a little bit more gray. Some of this has brighter white. So you want to make sure that you're over here sampling in kind of the brighter white area. Now, if you take a look at your properties panel for the curves adjustment layer, you can see that there's additional lines going on, red, green, and blue lines. Okay. What they're going to have us do next is grab the eyedropper tool for gray and then come over and sample for gray. So over here on the rooftop, there is some stacks over here. There's even, it looks like a little gray dish, you know, like a little satellite. So even if I click this, okay, you can see that it makes the image even more vibrant and kind of has a little bit of a warmth to it. Okay, so depending on where you click, as far as gray, this might be a little bit more blue. All right, so again, it's going to depend on which portion you're clicking as far as your whites and your grays or even your blacks. Okay, now there is an on adjustment and an on image adjustment tool, and it's this one right here. It kind of looks like a pointing finger that's sideways. I'm going to go ahead and click that, and we're going to use that in two different portions of this picture. Okay, So if we hover down here in the lower left-hand corner where it comes to like part of the roof, if you click with your left mouse button and gently pull down, you can see how that subtle adjustment happens. Okay. All right. Now over here, there's a dome, and I'm going to come down here over on this side right here. And I'm also going to click right around in here and kind of just click and drag slightly up. Okay. So it looks like we're making more specific adjustments, some to the lower portion of the picture, some to the upper portion of the picture. All right. I'm going to go ahead and do a Control S and save this. Okay. So you can do a file save, or if you're on a Windows computer, that's a Control S. If you're on a Mac, that would be a Command S. All right. Moving on to the next section in this lesson is on using a color and vibrance adjustment. Color and vibrance allows you to actually fine tune color and saturation. Okay, so I'm going to come back over here to my adjustments panel, and I'm also going to click to select color and vibrance. It's still under the single adjustments. I'm going to click that one time, and then I want you guys to notice the layers in the layers panel. Now there is an adjustment layer, and it is linked, and it indicates layer mask for color and vibrance. Okay, and of course that part is selected because you can see the line around the color and vibrance on the right hand side. Looking at the properties panel with color and vibrance selected, there's temperature and tint and vibrance and saturation. Okay, so you can play around with temperature and tint. I'm going to skip right on ahead to vibrance and saturation. I'm going to increase the saturation to 10. Now you can use your slider, or you can type in there 10 and press enter, and it will automatically put the plus sign in for you, which is great. Or if you want, you can put the plus sign in yourself. On vibrance, I'm going to put a plus 15 in there, and I'm going to press enter, and it'll automatically put the plus sign in front for me. And you can see that that made that just a little bit more richer. Okay, literally a little bit more saturated and a little bit more vibrant. All right, so I'm going to do another Control S and save this. I think this looks great. Okay, now if yours looks slightly different on coloring, not to worry. We're just practicing with selecting with gray point and white point and different things like that. All right, once I have this saved, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close this. The next section is on removing distractions. Okay, so we need to go to File and Open. Navigate again to where your lesson files are for lesson 2. And this one is going to be 0 to remove start. It's also a JPEG. I'm going to go ahead and that. And the first thing we need to do is what? We need to resave this and add underscore working and make sure it is a Photoshop file. So I'm going to go to File and Save As. I'm going to navigate to where I am saving my homework. All right. I'm going to go ahead and change underscore start to underscore working. And again, very, very important. Please make sure you change the save as type to a Photoshop file. And you can go ahead and save. Okay. Always check your open tab up here and make sure you have resaved this correctly. Removing distractions such as people in the background, overhead utility cables or wires, or even dust on a surface or camera lens can be easily removed in Photoshop with the Remove tool. Okay, so the keyboard shortcut for your Remove tool is actually J. So if you press J on your keyboard, okay, you may have a different tool that has previously been selected. So if you hit J and then you take your mouse and you click in the lower right hand corner, you're going to get this pop out box, like a kind of a drop down menu, if you will. And this is going to include the spot healing brush tool, remove tool, healing brush tool, patch tool, content aware move tool, and the red eye tool. So these are all different tools that you can use to correct and fix an image. All right. And their keyboard shortcut that they share is J. So we want to make sure that we have the remove tool selected. Up here on our options bar at the top, we need to make sure that we see this find distractions. We can click the little triangle in the lower right hand corner and go ahead and select wires and cables to remove them. Okay, the great thing about that, and you see that happening on the screen, is it's going to do its best to find those areas and then remove them. And then, of course, you can go in with your brush tool, with this tool still selected, and do some additional cleanup. Okay. All right. So I'm going to change the size of my brush. Okay, this is your brush size up here. I'm going to change mine to 45. And then you can follow along in the book for this section. And they have us kind of just heal up a few areas where these lines were. Okay, you can kind of see right here. So we're just kind of brushing over them. They're highlighting like a magenta pink color, and then Photoshop is doing its thing. And then whenever the pink magenta color, the brush strokes are gone, you can tell that this is all fixed up here. Okay. Now you can go up and even clean up a little bit further, and make sure that nothing is actually sticking up. And these tools work beautifully. Now, if we take a look, there are some bits and pieces left that was part of the wiring, the electric lines, the cables. So we just want to make sure that we're fixing this. Okay. So I am just going to come over here and highlight all of this. And then if you need to, you can still do additional cleanup. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and do a Control S and save what I have done so far. All right. The next thing that I want to do is I want to use my find the distractions. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and kind of zoom in a little bit. All right. So with my remove selected, okay, I'm going to come up here and do find distraction. This, I know they want us to change that to 60. Okay. And then this time we're going to find people. Okay. So it is finding people, but if you've noticed, it's picked up a whole bunch of extra areas that don't have people. So I'm going to choose up on my options bar, subtract from brushed area with a 60-point brush. And I'm going to unbrush, if you will, the magenta colored areas that we see here. Isn't that cool? Okay. I'm going to unbrush those. And then down here, they want us to actually just leave the two people that's on the right-hand side. Okay. So you may have to come in and kind of clean up a little better, depending. Now you can add two if you find that you need to come back in after you've done this. You might be like, oh, I got a little messy. It's totally okay. Okay. You can actually come in and add stuff back in. This person right here, we need to subtract. These tools are just amazing. Okay. And then I'm going to lower my brush size. And then just make sure that I'm adding the magenta color back on top of this person's sleeve. And maybe a portion of his pants. Okay. All right. And then when you're done, you're going to come up to the top and there's a check mark up here in your options bar to apply current strokes. And then I'm going to go ahead and select that. It's removing the areas. It kind of gives you a little tip in there. Give it just a second. Okay, how cool is that? All right, I'm happy with what that looks like, so I'm going to do another Control S, and for you Mac folks, that is a Command S. Perfect. All right. I'm going to put this view fit on screen so that you guys can kind of see what this looks like. We have successfully removed some wires and cables, like electric lines, power cables, stuff like that. And we have successfully removed 2 of the 4 people in the image. Okay, so I'm happy with what this looks like. And so I went ahead and saved that. All right. This one I am now done with. So I'm going to go ahead and close this second lesson file. Going to go to File and open this very last lesson file that we're going to work with. Again, navigating to my folder. And this last one is going to be 02 Creative Color Start. And I'm going to go ahead and save this. So I'm going to do a File Save As. Going to remove the word start, and you guessed it, it's got to be working. Save as type, we need to make sure that we do change this to a Photoshop file. And I'm going to put this on my desktop with the other 2. So this is the 3rd of 3 that we're going to work with. Make sure this is correct and go ahead and click save. And then of course you always just want to double check, especially when you have to submit homework, that you have this named correctly with the right file extension. Using color creatively. After balancing an image's color through color correction, you can, if you desire to, move on to color grading. Altering color creatively allows you to make adjustments based on creative goals to fit a mood or the art direction for an image or a project. We can do this through presets list in the adjustments panel. Okay. All right, so I'm going to keep my remove tool selected, and that is J on my keyboard. Up in the options bar, there is a find distraction. Okay, so I'm going to select it, and yes, we are going to do people again. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and select on people. And the great thing about this is that they actually selected the people that's in the background. So it got these groups of people on the left-hand side, and it got this person that's on the right-hand side. Okay, and that's great. And so I'm pleased with that. So I'm going to go ahead and click my check mark to apply to current strokes. I'm going to let Photoshop do its thing and remove those areas from my image. And then I'll go ahead and issue a quick save. Okay, as you've noticed, those people are now gone. I'm going to go ahead and do a Control S just quickly. Okay, now in my adjustments panel, okay, so far we have worked with the actual just regular adjustments, but this time, the single adjustments, this time we're going to work with preset. Okay, so I'm going to select my preset. And then in the portraits category, if you just run your cursor over, it's going to tell you and also give you a very quick look at what this is going to look like if you were to apply. I think that's very neat because you can hover and it will change and show you what it would look like before you even commit by clicking one of them. Okay. All right. So they want us to actually select the warmth preset, which is this one right here. And then by clicking that, if we take a look in our layers panel, it's added for us a layer group and it has portraits warmth. So if I toggle that on and off, it actually looks even more natural. It has a nice warmth to it, and you can tell that it's maybe adjusted skin tone even a little bit and give it a nice kind of rounded look to it. All right. The next thing that I want to cover is toward the end of the lesson, and it's on cropping an image for print. And then finally, we're going to sharpen. You can use your crop tool, and your keyboard shortcut for your crop tool is C. So if I press C on my keyboard, it's going to go ahead and highlight for me my crop tool. Now, in with my crop tool is perspective crop, slice, and slice select tool. But for what we're getting ready to do, I'm just going to be using my crop tool. Okay. So this basically allows you to quickly trim an image to the proportion and the resolution that it needs to be. Now, in the options bar, okay, there are presets that you can choose from. And if I select, you can see what those are right here, or you can even enter your own values. Okay. So we need to do an 8.5 by 11 and 300 pixels per inch. Okay. That is actually in portrait view, and we need that to be landscape. So if you press X on your keyboard, it'll swap that out so you get more of a landscape view instead of portrait. And then we can actually make sure that this gets cropped at the right angle that we need it to be. Okay, so this looks actually pretty good, okay, according to what this part of the lesson is requiring of us. But you can slide this over, and kind of go up and down. You can kind of see. All right, so they have this just about right here, which is going to be perfect. Okay, awesome. So you can click the check mark in your options bar at the top to commit the current crop operation. And then when I do that, it goes ahead and it crops it for me. Okay. Now it looks small, but if we take a look at the bottom left-hand corner, we're only at 25%. So we can increase that view to fit on screen, and the image goes pretty much almost full size again. Okay. So all we ended up doing was cropping a little off what was at the top and the left-hand side, and maybe a little bit on the right. The last section in this lesson that our book talks about is sharpening of an image. Sharpening is usually one of the last steps in retouching a photo. Okay. Not every picture maybe would warrant being sharpened. All right, so you can combine all the layers into a smart object, which allows you to still edit individual layers by double clicking into it. Okay, so when you're done editing the content, you can close the document that opened, but this allows you to apply a sharpen filter to all the layers at one time. That is neat. All right, so in the layers panel, I'm going to shift click all of the layers. Okay, granted, there's only 3, but shift clicking the top layer and the bottom layer will also include the middle layer. All right, and I'm going to go to layer up on my menu bar at the top, and then I'm going to choose Smart Object and Convert to Smart Object. Okay, so now if we take a look at our layers panel, it says Portraits Warmth, and you can see here that it has the Smart Object icon in the lower right-hand corner. Okay. All right. Next, what I'm going to do is up in my menu bar at the top, I'm going to go to Filter and Sharpen and Smart Sharpen. All right. And so basically what they're going to have us to do is to adjust. All right. I think at the beginning, and you can move this around too so that you can actually see like maybe their face and stuff like that. You know, they're having originally, I think they have us sharpen to like 400%. All right. And then they have us actually bring that back down to like 220%. And then, of course, you want to make sure, I think, lens blur that you're going to leave that as, and then you can go ahead and click OK. There's a shadows and highlights. They're not going to have us do anything with that, I don't believe. They're just going to have us adjust the amount, okay, sharpen, and then to remove any lens blur that we see there. Okay. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Leaving those values in there, it will sharpen to 220%. All right. I'm happy with this. I think this looks great. I'm going to do a Control S and do one final save of this. And this brings us to the end of our lesson. Please make sure before you submit your homework that you have all 3 files complete, that all 3 of them are saved correctly and as Photoshop files. All right, you guys, that wraps up lesson today on basic photo corrections.